Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 6, 2021, around 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Not too much to talk about today, but a look at powerful Hurricane Larry out in the central Atlantic and Invest Area 91L that could become a tropical disturbance near the Florida coastline over the next several days. So jumping straight into everything, taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon. We have powerful Hurricane Larry, a strong Category 3 hurricane over the central Atlantic. Very big, powerful system, and this will be generating a lot of swells later in the week that will impact portions of the East Coast all the way down to Florida and the islands over here, so be aware of that. Again, these can and have killed people in the past, so you got to be very careful of that. Now, this system will be moving generally northwestward and eventually will be curving and making a sharp northeast turn later in the week, and this should be moving far enough to the east of Bermuda where it won't have any substantial impacts to the island, but we'll be watching there. We got Invest Area 91L, not a very well organized system. There's a front in through here right now that is pulling, that is going to be turning the storm northeastward, both of these systems northeastward. 91L is centered somewhere down in here, will be moving northeastward later in the week, crossing over the Florida Peninsula or Panhandle, then out into the Gulf Stream here. Now, we can take a look here at the zoomed in visible imagery on the hurricane over here. Again, we notice that Larry right now has sustained winds that are somewhere about 115 to 125, 130 miles per hour. And you can see this is a very large eye. This is likely ongoing in another eye wall replacement cycle right now. Again, notice that there's not really any banding out here, so this is now an annular hurricane, which means annular hurricanes are less susceptible to dry air entrainments and weakening with time. So these will have a slower rate of decay as it moves over the cooler sea surface temperatures. The recon plane that was in there from earlier, that is still in there currently, did measure that we had a pressure of about 957 millibars on a drop zone and did have some very strong winds, especially here on the northern side of this. And the wind was about 111 knot flight level winds. So this is a pretty strong hurricane. And again, you can kind of see its overall motion is generally off towards the northwest at this particular time. We're also watching Invest Area 91L. You can see here in the visible imagery coming from tropicaltidbits.com that we don't really have any circulation that is in here. You can infer that there's a little bit of surface convergence and maybe a little bit of circulation up in here. You can kind of see where some of the low-level cloud features are starting to kind of bend off like this. And there may be some hints that a low-level circulation may indeed be forming somewhere in this region, although it is very elongated and broad. It's not very well established here, so it's kind of a iffy case at this moment. Now, if we kind of zoom this out here, and we'll take a look here at the zoomed out visible imagery, what we notice here is we've got a lot of convection over Louisiana right now, and this is actually in part because of a front. And if we go back and take a look at the water vapor imagery, we notice how, again, you can kind of see this front that's kind of sagging in through here. It's just off the screen here. But we also have some pretty strong upper level winds that are coming from the eastern Pacific and cutting across into the Gulf of Mexico. And similar to when we had Ida in this position, one of the main concerns with Ida was if that wind and outflow from eastern Pacific systems was going to be a significant inhibitor with development here. And if you remember where Ida was positioned right about here. Now, with this system, this is not comparable to Ida in the fact that this is well more to the west of where Ida was. We also have some pretty strong upper level winds, and this just isn't well developed at the moment. And because it's not well developed, you notice that there's a lot of just popcorn convection down here, and it's not really indicative that we have anything actually strong in this region. So therefore, again, there's not really anything that is particularly worrisome. If we go back here to the 850 millibar vorticity, so this is the spin in the atmosphere at about 5,000 feet off the ground. And for context here, these reds and whites, that's your high cyclonic spin at your 5,000 foot level. What you notice here is, again, there's a very weak area of surface vorticity here, or this is about 5,000 feet off the ground. So, just about 5,000 feet off of the ground here, of ground level, there's a little bit of vorticity in that area. And again, it's not a very well-defined vorticity, but certainly nothing like here with Larry. But again, there is a little bit of vorticity here. Now, we'll jump back to the GFS forecast here. This is the 850 millibar vorticity. We'll jump up to here to the 200 millibar wind. Again, here is Larry that is out here right now in the Central Atlantic. This is our Eastern Pacific system that's developing over here. I believe this is now Invest Area 96E. And this is the outflow that it's generating. You kind of notice this large amount of shear that it's pumping into the Gulf of Mexico at the moment. We can actually kind of zoom that down to take a closer look at that. You can kind of see, again, all of this shear that's coming basically from west to east, and that's shutting our system down, basically. And as we continue forward, again, just generally unfavorable conditions, and our storm really never gets going here. We can kind of see where a storm may try to form in this pocket here of a little bit better anticyclonic flow aloft here within the next 24 to 36 hours. But after that, the window basically shuts. This big trough that's dipping in here, again, just generally unfavorable, and we shouldn't really have to deal with that for that time. Now, we will have to watch and turn our attention back to the Caribbean probably closer to next weekend. There's a pretty large anticyclonic flow here ridging aloft, and there may be some sneaky systems trying to develop down in there. If we take a look here at the 850 millibar vorticity, nothing really gets going there, but there is some hints at a Central American gyre setup, so we'll be watching that very carefully with time. And a real quick look at the steering flow here. We'll go up to the 500 millibar height anomalies. Again, with Larry, there is no real significant concerns, again, for threats to the United States. Again, we have this ridge right now. This is 48 hours from now. We have this ridge, but it's going to be quickly eroded because this trough is approaching and moving eastward. This is a very high certainty forecast, so this isn't really, this isn't something that is likely to change all that much. Again, could get close to Bermuda here to bring some impacts, but likely not going to be bringing significant impacts to the island. But this could, though, get pretty close to the Canadian Maritimes later into next week, or in this case, kind of looking towards this week, actually. So we could be looking at, again, some threats to the Canadian Maritimes by the end of this week. But again, that's kind of highly dependent on that. And we'll kind of talk about more of that going forward in tomorrow's video. All right. With that being said, hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Mike Romali. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.